Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing my March wrap-up. March was a very good reading month for me. I read a total of 10 things, all of my TBR, jar picks, and a total of 3,366 pages. I read a variety of different genres, which is great. My average rating was around 3 stars, but closer to 4, I think. Didn't do that math before I started. And I read 6 books by men and 4 books by women this month, so not so bad. But let's get into the books. So I started off the month reading one of the books that I had started in February and hadn't finished, and that is Bitter Orange by Claire Fuller. I really love Swimming Lessons, which is her second book. This is her third book. And I had high expectations for this. I believe it was on my 5-star predictions even. But it didn't really do it for me. It was just okay. I didn't like the ending, and I rated it 3 stars. Then I read Hannibal. This is the third book in the Hannibal series by Thomas Harris, and I did enjoy this. I thought the ending was very interesting and kind of cliffhangery. I would like to know what happens next, but apparently the next book in the series is actually a prequel. What can you do? And I rated this 3 stars. And this was my first TBR jar pick. Next, I read a graphic novel. I read Volume 3 of Wonder Woman. I think that I had left too much time between Volume 1 and Volume 3 because they follow after one another, and Volume 2 is like a prequel to them. So I had forgotten a little bit of what was going on in the story, which wasn't helpful. So I still rated this a 4 and really enjoyed it, but I feel like it would have been better had I read it sooner. Next, I read Rebel of the Sands, which is the first book in the Rebel of the Sands trilogy by Olin Hamilton, and this was also a TBR jar pick, which was great to have finished that. I struggled with the world building in this and some of the descriptions that were given, so I only rated it 3 stars, and I'm not sure if it's a book that I'm going to keep or not. Then the next TBR star was Galapagos by Kurt Vonnegut. Me and Kurt Vonnegut, I think, have a difficult relationship. I really enjoyed it. The timeline in this story was a little bit harder to understand at some points, but, you know, it was still interesting. I rated it 3 stars. I don't know, like, I liked the first half a lot more than the second half, and it has interesting perspective in it, but I just don't think it was for me. Then I read Paper Girls Volume 5 finally, and now I'm sad that I have to wait longer. This was a great continuation, but it was definitely setting up what's going to happen next in the series, and it was a kind of more of a transitional book, I would say. So I rated it 4 stars because I still deeply love the series and the characters in it and the art, but I feel like it's just leading up to something bigger, which is why it wasn't a 5. Then you will have noticed at the beginning there was a book in my bullet journal that took me a long time to read, and that was my fourth TBR star jar pick, and that is God's Mercies by Douglas Hunter. This is a nonfiction split into 3 parts. First part is about Henry Hudson, who was an English explorer looking for the Northwest Passage in Canada, and the other was Samuel de Champlain, and how their stories intersect. And Samuel de Champlain was a French explorer in Canada who colonized Nova Scotia. It wasn't really about colonization. Champlain's part did have a lot more of those topics, and I felt that they were dealt with reasonably well. And where the book faltered for me was the third part. It just didn't really seem to resolve the story that had been building throughout this, and left me with quite a few questions, but it was an okay book. I rated it 3 stars, and I don't think it's going to be one that I'm going to keep in my collection at this point. Then, next, I read my final jar pick, which was actually my favorite book of the month, and that is The Colorist's Kuru Tazaki and His Years of Pilgrimage by Haruki Murakami. I think that is the best that I have pronounced this title so far. This is my third Murakami and definitely my favorite. It is about a man whose friends suddenly abandon him when he is in his second year of university. He doesn't know why or what happened, and it really hurts him, and then trying to move on with that in his adult life. So that's really cool. He loves subways and designing station platforms. That's his job as an engineer, which was also really interesting. And I just really loved this book. I thought it was really cool. I read it in 2 days. Then I read my first library book in forever, and that is Traded to the Throne by Owen Hamilton. This is the second book in the Rebel of the Sands series. I also flew through this. It was better than the first book. I rated it 4 stars. I still find that putting it in time and putting it in place has been very difficult for me, but I did enjoy reading it a lot more than the first one. So that was that. The month ended on a very good note because the last book that I read was The Queen of Atolia by Megan Wallen Turner. This was really interesting. There was really great red herrings in it and really good character development, and I really enjoyed it. I rated it 4 out of 5, and I'm very excited to read the next book in this series. But that was all that I read in March. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books or if they're on your TBR and you're really pumping to read them now. I'd love to hear from you. But that's all I have to say for today. So I'll see you tomorrow in my March book haul.